We are here at ICFF today. I'm really excited. Walking in this beautiful sunlit space and hearing the beautiful music. Jazz, first thing in the morning. Who wouldn't get inspired and excited to speak today? I hope some of you will be joining me today at noon at the center stage. See you soon.
Speaker on this than Phyllis Harbinger. Phyllis is a speaker, author, she's an interior designer, an educator, and in addition to running her highly successful interior design business, she gives so much back to ASID. She's been on her chapter support team, she's been a president of the New York Metro chapter, she's currently on 2 task forces, and she just gives so much time back, and she's such a dedicated member in addition to being a terrific interior designer. So without further ado, Phyllis Harbinger.
Hi everyone. So how are we all feeling today? Are we ready to get down and dirty with contracts and fees? Yeah? Okay. So Joseph introduced, so you know who I am and my background. And I started speaking around 5 or 6 years ago when I wrote a book, and then started to get a lot of questions from the book. So it started a second business for me in consulting and coaching, and then I started speaking across the world, and that's what I really love. So hopefully you'll get some great nuggets and jewels today to add to your cadre of how you work your business. And no matter what kind of creative you are, you have to deal with contracts. And you have to understand how to get your fee structures in line. Okay, so it's really not only about the agreement, but it's about how you stage that agreement. And a lot of us call it a letter of agreement. How many of you run your firm and call your contracts a letter of agreement or letter of engagement? A number of you, okay. We think it sounds better, right? It sounds less threatening, it sounds less legal. It has the same weight no matter what you call it. It is a document that binds you and your client together. So, your contracts are binding to protect both you and your client. It's not just about you, it's also about them, and you want to protect one another because that's the spirit that you would like to enter into a relationship with anybody in. And it prevents future problems, okay? Really big problems. You don't want to have to litigate, okay? How many of you have ever had to do litigation? Just a couple, okay? That's good, that's awesome. Usually there's a lot of hands up in the room. All right, when we're doing a letter of engagement, agreement, contract, it gives us an opportunity to talk with our prospective client prior to them signing the agreement. I always say do it live or do it virtually if they're not in your territory, because you want to have that live connection to somebody to make sure that you're watching their body language, listening to their questions, and not just sending them a document. When I first started out, no one told me what to do. I flew by the seat of my pants. And I'd send them out in beautiful envelopes in my stationery, and I'd wait. And I'd wait. Are they going to do it? Are they not? And then I'd wait that maybe 5 days or a week and then call, hi, how are you? This was before email. Then email came, and I would then send it, but then I would ask them by email if they'd gotten it. So we're in a very different age right now where we can virtually meet with our clients through Zoom, Skype, FaceTime, any way you want. And you can actually have that interaction even if you can't be with them live. Okay, parts of a contract. There are many, but I'm just going to focus on a few key parts. So, the explanation of the scope of the work, okay? So we always start out with scope of services after I do an initial blurb of what we're going to be doing. I'm so thrilled that I have the opportunity to present this to you, and here's the scope of services. So that's first. And then the phases of the project. So there are many different phases that a project goes through before you get to your punch list and your reveal. So you want to line item those out so that the clients understand exactly what your deliverables are and what they can expect. In addition, in terms of expectations, not part of contract, but what I do is I put together a binder for a client when they come on, and it says, what to expect from working with us, our hours of operation, when we'll be on site, what you'll have to do, how many times you'll need to be there. All of that goes into our protocol so that they really understand that, and they have to initial this too. And by the way, they initial every single page of my letter of agreement, and then they sign the final page. Because how many of you have heard, oh, I didn't even read it, I just signed it, how could it be bad? Have any of you ever heard a client say that? Nobody? Yes? Okay. It happens more often than you can imagine with my coaching clients, and even in my own business in the beginning before I went through the process of doing it live in front of them. And then your installations. Some people include the installations in their fees, others charge for install days, so those are things that you want to make very clear. How you handle installations, whether it's a drapery installation, a cabinet installation, a whole house installation before a reveal, how you deal with renovations, that's also a part of it. Then you've got your fees for your products and your services. So you want to be very mindful of calling that out as products and services if you bill for both. And everybody has, in this industry, it's so convoluted that everybody has a different menu of services, of how they charge and what they charge for. So you can massage that to make sense for the way that you work. Or you might do some test piloting and try something new out on a project and be brave and see if it works for you. That's the only way, if you try change, that you're going to grow. You've got to do some blueprinting sometimes or copying. You've got maybe travel outside the United States. I don't know, depends on where you are. So make sure you're putting in something for the billing of expenses, because it's another way to grab back some of that profit that doesn't have to come out of your fees. Okay, there we go. Liability is a huge word right now. We're a very litigious society. It's affecting every industry. It's really affecting our industry in a big way, especially now with the internet, which we're going to talk about a little later. But I want you all to realize that even though you might meet these people and have this amazing relationship with them and this connection and synergy, they're still your clients, and this is still a business relationship. It is not a friendship. And I'm going to tell you something. I've worked for so many of my friends, and every one of them has to sign a contract or I will not work with them. That's just the way it is. You've got to keep friendship out of the business. And if you don't do that, it will hurt you. I promise it will. So be mindful of that. So you want to mitigate your exposure to any loss, okay, and liability. That's part of what you'll write into these clauses, especially the boilerplates that you'll do. Minimize your risk. Think about problems. Whenever I'm reviewing a letter of agreement with a client, I give them examples of certain things so that they understand what could happen and how we dealt with it, and that they knew that I would always be on their side and make sure everything was made whole before the project was done. But I make sure I explain all of that to them because that's a really important factor. Clear communication. You don't want to leave anything on the table that you have not fully disclosed and discussed. You want to keep asking them as you go through your letter of agreement. Do you have any questions? Does this make sense to you? Do you understand? Is this good? Keep asking in different ways so that they can give you feedback at different points. Maybe they're so overwhelmed with their own thought process that they're not really thinking about the questions they have, but you cueing them will get them to give you some more deliverable feedback that will help you in the future. So, liability insurance. I'm going to give you a tip for that later after CEU portion's done, but these are things that you want to have. And if you don't have them, I'm not going to ask for a raise of hands, but I know that many times when I've asked clients that I've worked with, coaching clients, they don't have any insurance. And that is so scary to me because you have to protect yourself. I got insurance through ASID when I first started practicing, and I've always had it. I've raised it as I've become more successful, but you definitely need to make sure that you are protected. So your errors and omissions is the first type of insurance that you need to get, and many companies do this, and there are discounts if you're part of organizations that you can get into a group, and it's really a big savings. And it's wonderful to be part of that organization. Gender protection. So I work a little differently than many designers, and I've done this since I started my business. I do cost plus, but my clients pay directly to all of my vendors. I used to get, in the beginning when I started out, that I was crazy. But now, being cost transparent is becoming more of a norm than an exception. And honestly, your clients can price you up and down now. They have the internet, they have a major tool in their box. So be careful about your pricing structure and be very clear about how you explain that to your clients. Because if you're not, you could be caught in a very, very difficult web. And I don't want to see any of that happen to any of you. So when I'm dealing with my vendors, the clients are paying directly, and I have a clause in my contract that says your contracts will be directly with the vendor. And I'm not liable for them not delivering in a timely manner, a whole bunch of different things. Now, of course, I'm going nuts and I'm calling the vendors constantly, and my team is, and where is it? Isn't it ready? Why isn't it ready? And if something is wrong, we're certainly going to champion the client and be their voice. They're not calling the vendors, we are. But it's a level of service and it's a different way of working that you might wish to explore. So your vendor relationships. I have incredible vendor relationships that I've developed over the years. Vendors that I love, know, and trust, and I want to work with. Read your invoices, especially if it's vendors you've never worked with before. All that fine print creatives. We don't want to read that stuff, right? We want someone else to do that for us. You have to read it. You have to understand their return policies, their damage policies. You need to know what you're getting into when you engage your client in this relationship. Because even though they're signing, you brought the vendor to them. You recorded that vendor. So you have to be responsible ethically, if not monetarily, to this equation. Vendor disclaims. They may say, if it's more than 30 days, we don't have to take a return. And you may have been under construction and not able to open that box in 30 days. So really be informed. I really do truly have lifetime relationships with my vendors, 30 years, 20 years, 25 years. I'm very loyal to my vendors. We all have a lot of noise coming at us with people that want our business. So be mindful of who you engage with, because you're representing them to your clients. So you have to really be full on confident in their skills and their delivery. I used to get, when I was sending out my contracts, I'd get them back. I had this one crazy thing where I sent the contract and then it gets faxed back to me with cross-outs and cross-outs of fees and all kinds of things. I'm like, are you kidding me? So I sent back a note, I'm sorry, but my fees are not negotiable. And if you'd like to work with me, this is what it is. It comes again. He's upped his ante a little. He was Israeli, it's what they do, you know, a lot of Israelis like to bargain, it's part of the culture, but I'm not Israeli and I don't bargain and my fees are my fees. So I sent it back again, I'm really sorry, but you know, no, I'm not going to change my fee structure. Third time, at this point I'm exasperated. So I got on the phone and I said, listen, unless you're willing to sign my agreement in the way it came to you originally, I'm not the right designer for you. I think you need to go search for somebody else. And I want you all to really think about that, because not every job is a job that you're contracted to get. So if you get that little feeling here, don't listen to this, listen to this, because this is where all the good stuff comes from, okay? This is where you're getting your really, really important information. So don't take every job, even if you're just out of school and you think, oh my God, I want this job. I took a job once when I was just out of school, and it taught me the biggest lesson of my life, and I will never do that again, because it's very easy to fall in love with people, but you've got to really think about what you're getting into, okay? And if the job isn't really big enough and you're not going to be getting enough profit out of it, whether you like them or not, they're not for you. I turned down a job last week because it wasn't enough profit. Lovely person, I know her for years, she was waiting to work with me, and I said, I'm so sorry, but you know, this is my minimum for this type of job, and I can't do it. So you have to think about that ways, okay? And if you change things in it, make sure that your attorney sees what those changes are. If a client comes to you and the job is something you really want and they're asking for something that you think might be okay, don't just say yes. ask your attorney. It's worth their hourly fee to get that information. Okay, so if you do end up in a dispute, I've had one in all of my years, and it didn't go to court. Thank God. I have an arbitration clause, which we'll talk about in a little bit, but it didn't go there either. You will have disputes sometime in your life, hopefully only one, hope maybe none, but it's par for the course, especially today, as our society grows more and more litigious. There are always two sides of the story. Really dive deep, ask, how could I have done better? What are you seeing that's wrong? But come from a place of wanting to learn and wanting to improve the communication, because we all get very defensive, right? It's part of our nature. We get that shield that goes up and we're right, and how could they say this about us? It's just like our work. How could our work not be winning? Somebody else won, right? We all see that. So it's the same thing because of the creative nature that we have. So I want you to really think about that and step back and see, what about this could I have done differently? And sometimes you just admitting something, you know what? Maybe we could have shifted this. Would you like to try that now? That could diffuse the entire thing. Because you're willing to say, okay, maybe there was an issue. Maybe we didn't communicate everything perfectly. Let's step back. And so I would love for you all to think about that before you engage the lawyers and go down that road of dispute, because it could save you a lot of money and it could save the client relationship. So that's something that you should definitely try. Fees. It's a big topic today. How are we charging? What are we charging? How are we competing with our competitors online, decorators, showrooms and stores at retail that offer free design services, right? So we have a lot of competition that we didn't have when I first came into this business almost 30 years ago. So you want to ask yourselves, is your fee structure still relevant? And really dig deep. Start the conversation with yourself, because you really need to look at what you're doing. So you have to have options today. You can't just have what we used to have, where here it is, this is how I work, and that's it. So when I'm talking to a client, I call it a GAC, a Get Acquainted call. I ask them about their budget, I ask them about their scope of work. It's a 20-minute call, and I test out whether or not they're going to be a good client for me. I also send them a survey that they have to fill out, so I know before the call even happens if this is going to be a potential fit. So that's one way that you can look at the job and say, is this going to be a good job, and how do I want to charge for this? Am I going to use my, tried and true method, or am I going to do something different, or what's going to happen here? Oops, sorry. So you want to charge for your intellectual property. Does everybody understand what intellectual property is? That's your creative juice. That's your deliverables. That's the magic that you make, okay? It's not so much the shopping and the schlepping. It's really the creation, the curating. That's what it's about. So you want to charge for that. And how many of you have started to toy with fixed fees? Anyone? Fixed fees? Okay, a couple. Okay. So they are trending. And as you know, we have tons of different ways to look at our services. Hourly fees, fixed fees, flat rate for maybe partial project, and then you go to a cost plus, day rate. A lot of times you can make a lot of money. Say somebody is coming in for a day and they really don't want to engage in the whole process with you. Maybe it's an old client and they've moved, but they really want your expertise for a day. Charge them $1,000 for the day. It's worth it. And then you have been paid for your intellectual property and your creativity, and they're happy. And they usually come back for more. But you can have a day rate, and it's a really great thing to do. You can also do the combination, like the menu of services, where you start out perhaps with a flat that you're doing for your creative services, and then you go into procurement, and that's a fee, and then you go into installation, and that's another fee. So that's another way that you can roll out your services depending on the project and how much attention you think these people need. And words can hurt you, so be mindful of that. Write your contract with stipulations so that you can get phased payments. It's kind of like retainer runs out and they refill it. So instead of calling it that, call it a phased payment. and create a schedule for those phased payments. I even do that with my coaching clients. I've also done things where if I have a flat fee and it's big, I'll say, if you pay it all up front, I'll give you a discounted percentage. I can't tell you how many people do that. And it doesn't cost you anything really because, you'll make it up. You'll make it up in other ways. But it's a really great way for you to have money growing in your account instead of in their account. So you can think about that as another tactic. Okay, flat fees. Let's talk about flat fees because I've found that they work really, really well in certain respects. I've also found that getting a client to really give me a budget, and the budget is good, if I work backwards from that budget, we have a whole spreadsheet that we designed, and it's got formulas and all kinds of stuff in it, and it really is amazing. Clients love it because they see that you're being a shepherd and a steward of their money, and you can see, as you're starting to spec things, where you could be up, where you could be down, where you may need to change out a spec, and it really, really helps you to be front of mind with this project. And I have to tell you that a lot of commercial work has always been done flat fee, and residential is really starting to hop on board with this concept. And it's been great for me when I've done it. I really love it. It provides you the constant cash flow. Your purchases don't impact your bottom line because you've included everything that you're going to do in that flat fee. If your client tells you they have a $200,000 budget for this apartment, you figure out what are your design fees going to be, how much deliverables are you going to have, how many days are you going to have to be installing or receiving. All of that can be calculated. And once you do it once with the spreadsheet, you'll have a great template, thank you, a template to use so that you don't have to do this work every single time. It's there for you. You could just go back to this resource and use it over and over again. These are X, payable to designer. Construction is Y, payable to the contractor. So when your client tells you what their budget is, you want to be very clear. Is that your whole budget or is that the budget for design services? What's your construction budget? So this client, I had to go through those layers with her. She had a $400,000 construction budget and now it's already 15% over. So now she's taking money away from the design budget. So you really need to understand all of these factors. And I have to tell you, having clients that are accountants are great because they understand money and they're really easy to work with in many respects. So if anybody has a client that comes to them that's an accountant, don't shy away. They're good clients for the most part. Okay, now if your purchases, because they have great taste, go in excess of X, then you're going to want to have the opportunity to be able to get more money from this job. So write in a clause in your contract if you're doing fixed fees that protects you, okay? And you want to also stipulate, like we talked about before, the timeline. And if the timeline goes further and you're in a flat fixed fee, you're going to get paid for that timeline overage. Charge for revisions. How many of you do multiple drawing revisions and you're not getting paid for them? You need to get paid every time that somebody wants a revision. And if they add to the scope of work, do addenda to your contract. I have clients sign addenda all the time, that all of the other clauses of our contract are moving forward to this addenda, but here are the deliverables for this scope that I do. But there are just two things I want to share with you that I learned from a mentor many years ago. One is called Money Mondays. And every Monday, especially business owners, you should go to your desk and before you go online, before you start taking calls, look at your cash flow report from last week. Where are you? What do you still have out there that could be deliverable this week that you could have you and your team action on to bring in more cash? That's where you want to spend your energies first. It's very easy for us to spend it on the other stuff, but this is the stuff that's going to put money in your bank account and support you, your family, and your team. So be very mindful of that. Money Monday is important. And then recap your income and expenses every Friday. See where you were. Talk to your team about what you think we need to do for the next week. Mobilize everybody into that culture so that you are having productive and also financially productive time with your team, and if you're a solopreneur, with yourself. But you have to do this. You have to look at yourself, and you have to look at the reflection in the mirror and say, am I doing what I need to do? Did I invoice correctly? Did those go out? Did I charge for the time? What did I do this week? Make sure that you're looking at that. Okay. Joseph, are you here with microphone? Okay. I want you all to think about what you're going to do to affect change in your own business. Okay? I really want you to go home or back to the office or strolling through here, and not just today, but take some time to really autopsy your business and see where you're going and what you could do to make it better. CEU part's over, so anybody that wants to leave can. I just want to add that ASID has just redesigned their entire contract tools, and they're on the ASID website, and they have both residential and commercial contract packages. I wouldn't suggest you take them and just use them. I suggest you take them, read them, understand them, put in your own little boilerplates, massage them so they feel like you, not just a contract that was written by somebody. Then take that refined document to your attorney, have them look at it, make sure nothing has been left out or that there's something in there that might not be good for you.